Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you, everyone out there. Thank you for being here. Today, Dr. Conte, we want to talk about the currency crisis in the Gambia, if I may put it that way. And also, later in the show, I will briefly talk about the Bob Keita case to put a final look at that case in the Gambia, particularly the verdict, what has gone right in the trial and what has gone wrong, in my view. Dr. Conte, on the currency situation in the Gambia, what I call currency risk in the Gambia. If you're doing business in the Gambia, one thing you want to pay attention to, particularly, is the problem of the Gambian dalasi. And this is more important for people whose businesses have an international dimension. If you're just producing goods in the Gambia and you are selling them in the Gambia, or you are rendering services in the Gambia and receiving payments in the Gambia, you don't take your money outside the country, you're probably okay for now. You're still going to face the problems of inflation, but the exchange rate is not going to dramatically, seriously affect your earnings. If your business have an international dimension, like if you use foreign currency, or you get involved in foreign transactions, such as borrowing money abroad and investing it in Gambia, and those funds you are acquiring abroad are denominated in dollars, you are very vulnerable to the exchange rate risk in the Gambia. If you are also taking letters of credit from the banks, commercial banks, and these letters of credits are denominated in foreign currency, such as dollars, you are at a very high risk of losing a lot of money. And I think this is what the OMCs are talking about, they're facing right now. So it's a pretty big implication on business in the Gambia. All business owners in the Gambia whose transactions have international dimension, such as this, should be very careful about their investments in the Gambia. So what we currently have, the situation in the Gambia currently is that the dalasi seems to be on a free fall. The dalasi has been declining in value for a very long time. I remember in the 2000s, the dalasi was $10 a dollar, $10 to a dollar, right? Today it has multiplied more than 5 times that value now. I mean, it has depreciated more than 5 times that value. Is almost coming to 6 times, right? Yeah, more than 6 times actually, because they were talking about the formal exchange rate in the 60s now. So, and what is happening, doctor, is that there's a lack of foreign currency in the Gambia. There's no dollars existing in the Gambia. There's a serious dollar shortage in the Gambia. And so, even the commercial banks, the dollar is not easy to come by. It's very hard to find. So that scarcity is pushing the price of the dollar up. And that is why everybody is chasing for dollars that are almost non-existent. The only place it looks like where you can find dollars is in the black market. And my understanding is that even the banks, refer their clients to purportedly black market dealers, because the banks do not have foreign currency. They don't have dollars. So this is a very dire situation in the country. And part of the reason also is that Gambia is not trading. Gambia is losing out big time on trade with the neighbors, particularly Senegal. So there's a huge trade imbalance between the Gambia and Senegal. Gambians import more from Senegal, far more from Senegal than Senegalese do. So because of that, the dalasi is not only depreciating against the dollar, it is also depreciating against the CFA franc. And this is making it even harder for Gambians, to access foreign currency, because pretty much all the foreign currency in the Gambia, particularly the dollar, is fleeing to Senegal, right? Because it is better, you are better off with your dollars in Senegal, your foreign currency in Senegal, than you are with it in the Gambia. There's a huge trade imbalance. And this is kind of like a double-edged sword, doctor. Since Senegal is insisting on payments in CFA, this is further increase the demand of CFA even in the Gambia. All the imports Gambians bring from Senegal. Every time you buy something in Senegal, the Senegalese payments must be in CFA francs. So there's a huge demand for CFA, and that explains why the dalasi is falling, depreciating against the CFA franc as well, not only the dollar. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And these vulnerabilities are very existing, very common in international trade, right? You don't only look at the political risk, you also look at currency risk, right? The economic risk is there as well. But Gambia is facing a serious currency risk. The dalasi's value has been very unstable and has been systematically declining. For Gambians, they don't only have to grapple with the lack of foreign currency in the country, particularly the dollar, but they also have to grapple with the huge inflation, the high inflation in the country, driving food prices and fuel prices up. So it is no coincidence, it is no accident that the government is in conflict with the oil marketing companies, I believe, over the price of gas, because like the Commissioner General of GRA, Yankuba Davos said, the subsidies that the government is pumping into stabilizing gas prices is not sustainable. And I think the government has begun to feel a pinch of this. So now I think they're making efforts to reverse this situation, to somehow get back some of the money they are putting into stabilizing gas prices in the country. And part of the reason why they are in conflict with the OMCs has to do with that. But the currency problem is a lot also at the background of all of this. I think the main driving force behind all these problems is the Gambia's currency problem. In the days, for example, if you acquire loans abroad, and those loans are denominated in dollars, you take those loans when the dollar is like $53 $53 to a dalasi, for example, and at the time of your payment, 6 months later, for example, the dalasi has depreciated to 54, 55 dalasis to a dollar. That's a big loss of money. You are going to pay those loans not at 53, but 54 at the current rate. So that's a huge loss of money to you. And I think the letters of credits that the banks are issuing to business people, for example, if you import something. Because a lot of these business people, when they import, when they bring in stuff, they don't have the money to pay. They rely on commercial banks to pay for these goods. And then they pay back at a certain time after they sell these goods, right? So at the time you are making those imports, you are taking your letters of credit, the dollar value at the time, your letters of credit are denominated in dollars, right? And at the time of taking the loan, between that and the time you are paying the loan, the value has dramatically changed. And so that's a massive, massive loss of money to you, right? So these things work very well when the currency is quite stable and predictable, right? So at the time you are doing even futures, if you're entering into a futures contract, it's going to be very, very difficult, for somebody in Gambia doing business in Gambia, and you are entering into a futures contract that are denominated in foreign currencies, such as the dollar. You are likely to make massive, massive losses, right? So this is the crux of the matter, Dr. Conte. This is what we want to bring out for everybody to know that if you are doing business in the Gambia today, and your business has international dimensions, international implications, you make transactions abroad and you invest your money in the Gambia, and those transactions are most likely going to be denominated in dollars because most lenders are going to insist on that, right? Because the dollar is a safe currency. Its value is relatively stable and predictable, right? But the dalasi is not. So if you enter into transactions that are denominated in dollars and you're going to pay back in dollars, well, if you're a Gambian businessman, you are likely to incur massive losses eventually down the road. And that is what our um, oil marketing companies are facing in the Gambia. And that is why they are putting their feet down, in resistance to government's demands. Dr. Conte, this is what I wanted to bring out for all to understand. I'm sure most people understand this already, but just to bring it out to light so that it can be at the forefront of our decision making. Dr. Conte.
Well, thank you very much. Um, since our functional currency is the dalasi, any foreign person, including Senegalese, coming to Gambia and selling goods, they should be paid in dalasi. And they, in turn, should go and exchange the dalasi into safer. Because we cannot go to Senegal and try to sell goods there demanding the dalasi. That one, the two governments should work that out. Because when we talk about devaluation of the currency, that is one area that we have to abide by. Uh, if we do that, that can even bring some form of confidence in our functional currency, which is the dalasi. And so, are we going to go and talk about the risk, or this just an introduction?
This is the risk I wanted to bring forward, but I know it's a bigger topic, Doctor. So we can look at all the dimensions of it.
Okay. So what I did was, let me help you here. I went out and I did. Let me see if I can pull all this out. There's misconception among a lot of people who think that the safer is stronger than the dalasi. I'm trying to find where I can share this with you. Or is the button moved out again? Well, let me see. Just 1 second. I'll pull this. I did a summary of all the currencies in Africa, and um, to be quite candid, Ghana, as of yesterday, Ghana has the highest depreciation of 69%. And Ghana's consumer price index, 176.3. And the rate of inflation in Ghana is 26.1%. The next country in the entire continent of Africa with the highest devaluation rate is Sierra Leone, with 48.55%, and the consumer price index 170.9, one can say 171, and the rate of inflation is 31.2, which is negative 0.88% of GDP. Ghana has a trade surplus of 2 billion US dollars, despite having the highest currency devaluation. I want to concentrate on the western part of Africa. The third country, or the next country, is Cape Verde Island, which actually ties with all the French-speaking countries relative to currency devaluation. So having almost 13, 14, 15 countries in the entire continent of Africa, the French-speaking, including Cape Verde Islands and Guinea-Bissau, their currencies have devalued by 16.34%, which is more than the devaluation of the Gambian dalasi from January 1, 2022 to the 15th of October 2022. So you have Togo, Congo, Central African Central African Republic, yes, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Niger or Niger, Gabon, Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal. Senegal's the CFA devalued more than the Gambian dalasi from January 1, 2022 to the 15th of October 2022. Chad also has a drop in the valuation of the CFA, 16.34%. Equatorial Guinea, 16.64%. Benin, 16.34%. And even South Africa. South Africa's currency devaluation is higher than the Gambia's currency devaluation. Namibia, South Africa has 14.55% devaluation of currency rand, and Namibia, which uses the dollar, their currency devalued by 14.55%, so as South Africa. Lesotho, currency devalued by 14.5%, Eswatini, 14.55%, Botswana, 14.9%, Tunisia's currency devaluation is higher than the Gambia's devaluation. Tunisia 13.56%. So as South Sudan. The Comoros currency decreased in value 13.34%. Libya's currency went down 9.26%. Uganda 7.88%. Ethiopia 7.05%. Kenya 6.88%. Madagascar 6.84%. And the Gambia's currency decreased as of yesterday 6.58%, with uh, consumer price with trade deficit of 0.54 billion. So the question here is that even though we are a smaller country, if we are to make comparison with almost more than 50 to 7 more than 70% of African countries, we are doing better than them. But we are a smaller economy, regardless of whether our currency went down by 6.8%. What is the net effect of our currency? Because I'm trying to find the consumer price index, just allow me to do that. So the Gambia's percentage of deficit, our trade deficit, 0.54 billion US dollars, which is 29.948% of the GDP. So now I want to go and talk about why is the Gambian dalasi depreciating? People are holding the dollar and other currencies. It was a bad policy for the government to allow citizens to open foreign currency accounts. But since the foreign currency accounts are opened, the government cannot turn around, or they can do whatever they want to do. But most of the people, would you like to have a dollar account at a bank in the Gambia? When you want to withdraw, they tell you that they can only pay you in dollars. So people, we don't have shortage of foreign currency in the country. We have shortage of foreign currency at the banks. Because if you have, say, 50,000 to 100,000 US dollars, and now these people are telling you is that if you want to withdraw money, we have to pay you in dollars, even though you are going to get more dollars because the dollar is depreciating, but you're going to turn around and go to the market again and buy the same product at a higher price. So I was talking to an economist asking him, I'm kind of puzzled by seeing Ghana having a 69% devaluation of its currency and having a consumer price index of 176 and a trade surplus. I said, I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't get this. Why will Ghana's currency decrease in value when it has a trade surplus? So are we not trading with each other? Go ahead.
So if I may comment there briefly, Doctor. So what I think may be happening with Ghana is that I know Ghana is struggling a little bit with the economy. It is not as great as it used to be. But I think what Ghana may be doing is similar to what China was doing. See, China has a massive trade surplus with USA. But usually what US accuse China of is manipulating their currency, keeping it low to allow to facilitate imports from China. And that is what sustained a trade surplus for China against US. So Ghana, looking at Ghana's trade surplus, they might be and I suspect this, they might be keeping their currency devalued low so that trade outflows, they can continue to import. It will be more attractive to import from Ghana because of the relative low currency than if their currency is high value. If you have a high value currency, it's difficult to export from your country because it costs more. A relatively low value currency allows for it is cheaper to import, and that is why all the major countries, developing countries, have been importing from China all these years because Chinese have made sure that their currency remains relatively at a lower value than the dollar. So pretty much everything we bring into US is pretty much imported from China because it's cheaper to buy it from there and bring it over here than to make it here yourself. So I suspect, that low value CD, Ghanaian currency, might be helpful to the Ghana's economy. In the Gambia, it is very different. The Gambia is a net importer. We don't export. And the cause of the depreciation of the dalasi, I think is entirely different from the cause of the depreciation of the Ghanaian currency. The Gambia's major problem that is driving the value of the dalasi down is the scarcity of the dollar itself in the country, because everybody is scrambling for the dollar so they can import stuff from outside. We don't export. And even the banks, and I suspect this, the banks are not willing to sell the dollar at the current market rate. They are looking for a higher price. So banks, I strongly suspect, and this might be very illegal, because I think I had somebody say that when you're a private person, you approach the banks to buy foreign currency, the dollar from them. They tell you, for example, the dollar is 62 dollars to the dollar. They tell you, but I cannot sell you to that. I cannot sell it to you for that. I don't have the money. I don't have the dollar, but I know somebody who might have dollars and they can sell it to you. And they contact that person for you, and they tell you, well, he said he cannot sell it, and he can only sell it to you at 72 or 75. See? And you are compelled, you have no choice but to buy that from that person or go without the dollar. But you need the dollar. You have to buy it at that price, 75, right? So this is a speculation. I'm speculating. Maybe the banks have found out that they can make more money selling the dollar on the black market than selling the dollar in the banks. So they may be giving the dollar to somebody on the black market to sell it on their behalf, and they pocket the profit. This is entirely possible because I understand that the dollar is completely lacking. The banks said they don't have it. They can't issue dollars because they don't have it. It's completely scarce. But many of these banks will turn around and refer you to somebody in the black market who they know can sell the dollar to you, even though it's going to be at a higher price. So I strongly suspect there is some illegality also in that. But I just wanted to highlight that even though Ghanaians' currency may be depreciating at a higher rate than the Gambian dalasi, the entire undercurrent of these movements for the Gambia is totally different from the situation in Ghana. So in the Ghanaian case, it might be really benefiting their country, but in the Gambia, is making our economy worse for everybody because it's the underlying causes are totally different.
Okay, thank you. But again, the Gambia's consumer price index is 124.5, less than Senegal's consumer price index of 127. and our inflation is 13.3, basically less than Senegal's inflation rate. Let me make sure, less than Senegal's inflation rate. So what I'm saying here is that no, Senegal's inflation rate is 11.9. Gambia's inflation rate is 13.3. So now, do we know the food inflation?
I
I
don't know,
wish we,
but
I
I
wish
don't
we have, I wish we have data. I wish we have data on food inflation,
right,
particularly items that we can grow.
right,
So this is one area that we need to engage each other
right,
to say that why are we importing goods that we can grow in the Gambia?
right.
Even though we are a smaller economy, but it's, again, still comparatively, when I look at the currency devaluation and I look at the rate of inflation in French-speaking Africa, Gambia's inflation of 13.3, and I'm looking at Senegal 11.9, not too far.
Right.
But Guinea-Bissau surprised me with inflation rate of 7%.
Yeah, I think Guinea-Bissau lately are doing pretty well in terms of organizing their
But
economy.
yeah, but Mali's inflation rate is 4.04%.
Right.
I mean, how is that possible?
Well, it depends. It depends on the dynamics of the economy of these countries. You
Yeah,
know,
but what I'm saying, Mali is a landlocked. How come their inflation is almost what 50% more less than what we have in the Gambia, or more than 50% than what we have in the Gambia, even Senegal.
but Mali. Well, I can speculate on this. Mali
Okay,
is
speculate.
Mali is under restrictions currently, right? Mali may not be in a position to rely on imports as much as Gambia is currently. So inflation rate is partly the structure of your economy. It can be explained by looking at the structure of your economy. Um, Gambia is relying a lot on importing everything, and we don't produce internally. So employment employment dynamics in the Gambia are totally different from the employment dynamics in Mali. The import-export situation are different. So I can probably see why Mali, even though it is landlocked, may be able to maintain a low inflation rate than the Gambia is. But again, one has to closely look at these two economies, particularly Mali's that we are not very familiar with, to see how we can better explain their low inflation rate. But I strongly suspect it may have to strongly do with um, the balance of trade. I mean, how their import-export situation in the country uh, as part of an explanation for that.
Okay, so since we are talking about currency devaluation, uh, I happened to, one time when I was in the Gambia, I used to have a key to the foreign to the safe foreign currency.
Mhm.
Okay, and customers will come to order stuff. Uh, we had to get them a letters of credit, which
Yeah,
means that the vendor, external vendor, did not have any trust in the Gambian merchants, so the banks had to guarantee payment.
right.
And so, that being the case, uh, the Gambian dalasi at that time, tied to the British pound sterling, if I'm not mistaken, was it £1 sterling to $4 or something like that?
Okay.
Okay, but now what has happened in the Gambia, and then our agricultural output probably was more than even 30%. But now, if you look at the urban areas, because when I was going to school, there were farms, yes, in Bakau. If you go to Bakau Newtown, you could see a lot of them. Now, all of those things have been replaced by residences. I know it's everyone's choice to live where they want to live, but we evidently going to face food insecurity. So if you look at the urban areas, we don't have farming there. Almost everything has been replaced by uh, by 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 residences. And then you have the influx of other people coming from other countries, and where we have stipulation in our country that uh, a non-citizen of the Gambia cannot own more than 50 by 50, but you have people owning more than 400 by 400. So we circumvent rules for our own fraudulent activities. So now this has affected all of us. Even they're sending money today. I just watched within a week the person who I normally send money through, uh, the person's rate, increased by $1 within a week. So who knows before the end of October whether it's going to be right now. The person's rate is 50.5, no 54.55. So chances are before the end of this month it's going to be at least 60.
Right.
So having said that, somebody on Facebook, a friend of mine, a friend on Facebook, did not understand the exchange rate when he saw that they're now going to be receiving more Gambian dalasi as before. He said that was advantage. I said no, it's disadvantage, because when we are talking about you having the Gambian dalasi to go and buy $1, this is what it's going to cost you. But again, even if we say, okay, if you receive that 55 or $62 is to $1, the thing is that if you live in urban combo, you are going to use that same money to buy imported goods, and imported good price is going to go up.
Right.
But if you live in the provinces where you have your own chicken, you grow your tomatoes, lettuce, onions, carrots, cucumber, plantain, bitter tomatoes, tomato, you name it, okra, and you're going to use that to cook, you're going to spend less money.
Right.
But if you live in urban combo, tell me where are you going to grow those things? So evidently you have to go to where? To the market to buy. But then you notice that a lot of us here are in the diaspora, and most of us have the opportunity of having uh, uh, fence, places where no one is actually using. Remember the young man, Mr. C, who was here last week, and he wants to expand. Now he's even asking government to give him land, which to me, how can government give land, when land is owned by individuals? uh, Government cannot come and just take land from poor farmers and give it to a business person without compensation. And then we also have to expand to the countryside, because activities done in the urban area should be reflected in urban area, in countryside, and so forth. So now this is something that Jammeh had been talking about. Saudada came with the Tacito, but it was not never for the practice. Yeah, Jammeh talked about people going back to the farms, but he only went to his farm, and very few people went there. And the growth of real estate has actually decreased, particularly in the common combo areas. And when you look at transportation wise, it is really expensive for someone to have a farm 200 kilometers away, and then logistics wise, how are you going to be able to bring that product and sell to the market? So this is something soul searching that we have to do. That I am not in favor of. Of course, I don't want to restrain any trade activity, but I can't believe we have to buy tomatoes from Senegal when we can grow them in the Gambia. But all those things have to come through what? Engagement. We are not going to jump on people to say you are lazy. but we're going to encourage them to say that grow what you eat. And maybe if we do that, our currency can have strength. But this is very scary because I remember way back in 2006 during the Iraq War when the Gambian dalasi appreciated against the US dollar. And now it is the opposite every time you turn around. As a matter of fact, let me check and see what the rate is because it can change instantly. So the question here is this. If you see the sudden devaluation of the Gambian dollar, say, relative to the US dollar, and you notice that the Gambian dollar is fully depreciating, how about if you are buying you are building in the Gambia? So the cost of the material that you're going to buy is going to be expensive because most of those goods are what? They are imported. And if they are imported, most likely they were denominated in the US dollar. So what I don't understand, I haven't seen any blueprint or any urgency on the part of the government to counter this dalasi nightmare. I haven't seen it. And I think the government should begin to realize that. I haven't seen anything from the Ministry of Finance to say what we need to do to contain the dollar. You know, in the US here, you look at the housing market when they increase the interest rate, what has happened to the discount rate? What has happened to the housing market? Now it's about 6%, and now you're saying that now uh, people are reluctant to go into debt because the interest rate is high. When it was about 3%, now you're telling me that if I have to buy a house again or whatever, my rate has to double. So, but we don't have any fiscal policy, monetary policy. When we were telling the president, do not increase the salaries of civil servants, you're going to have more dollars coming in, floating in the country. It's going to further suppress the value of the dollars against foreign currencies. We don't even know whether this government, I don't know, I wasn't there, whether this government printed more dollars to sustain the increase in salaries. Do we know? I have no idea.
Right.
Another one here is that we say, please do not totally depend on taking loans from foreign countries. If you borrow money, it's going to suppress your dollars. The dollars value is going to decrease, which means that it's going to take you more dollars to buy a foreign denominated goods. So here we are, coming out of the rainy season. Things are getting tough and tough and tough. Again, somebody was telling me a bag of rice that used to cost 1,200 is now 1,700. So which means that within 3 months, that same bag of rice is going to cost about $2,000. A lady told me that she went to the store to buy something, and she said she paid $250 for a bottle of something. When she went back there the next day, not 2-3 days later, the next day it cost $350.
Wow.
So these are things that we have in our country, and what can we do as citizens to have stability in the dalasi? I know that all these currencies are devaluing, but the extent of what the Gambian dalasi is decreasing in value within a 10-day period is a nightmare. If I have to go back and look at, say, October 1 to October 16th, what is the total devaluation of the Gambian dalasi relative to the US dollar, and also the devaluation of the CFA relative to the US dollar? I have no data on it, but this is very scary. So that's why when Sadada was president of the Gambia, a lot of people say, well, Sadada did not build this, he didn't build that, he didn't build that. We did not have the revenue to sustain capital infrastructure development. We did not have under Sadada. So these people came in. I know it's a good idea. It's always nice to build roads and so forth. Yes, you can. But the net effect you're going to have is that you're going to further devalue your currency because the money is going to come from external sources. And another problem we have in the Gambia is that when we have capital improvements, we do not have any user fees attached to that, even to pay for interest on that loan and or to repair the physical structure that we have, whether it is roads or whatever. So these are problems. And then when you try to talk about it, even if you support someone, they say that you are sabotaging that person's development agenda. And now what has happened to all of us, again, as Gambians, as you can see, the Gambia dalasi is free for all. It's falling like crazy. And now we are, some people may jubilate to say, oh, now if I was sending $100 to my people and they were getting $5,000 when the rate was $50, now the rate is 56. If I send the same $100, they're gonna get $5,600. It's $600. But now I'm gonna decrease that by maybe $10 is just for them to get that 5,000. But again, that 5,000 will not be enough for them to buy the goods that they need. So this is something that I wish this government will have the courage to say that we need some help. And then when they go out there to rely on this, I call them visiting economists from the IMF and the World Bank, they have your data and they're going to tell you this is what you have to do to restructure your economy. You have to do this, you have to do that. Guess what? In my view, what I read in the textbooks, IMF, World Bank, they have no interest for the prosperity of developing countries. When they see a country's currency is strong, they will come up with these structural adjustment policies to ensure that your country's currency will devalue. Remember Ghana, what Ghana did. Ghana dropped the zeros years ago. And I say, yeah, your currency is going to devalue, it's going to devalue exponentially. And look at what happened again. Ghana's currency is falling. Major currencies in Africa, they are falling. And for us in West Africa, we cannot look at one unit measurement to have one functional currency. We still cannot do it. I was talking to someone also from East Africa. I say you all use shillings, with the exception of Zambia that uses is it Kwanzaa or something. But you all use shillings. Why can't you all have the same currency? We will continue to face economic problems in Africa as long as we continue to be selfish in our own countries, as long as we have corruption going on in our countries. Gambia will face this nightmare. The Gambian dalasi, what I predicted the Gambian dalasi is to be in March, I say it's going to be 50 by December. Now I can predict the Gambian dalasi is going to be 70 by December. $70 to $1. So which means that if you extrapolate that and look at the devaluation, one can say that the price increase on the goods, imported goods, will increase exponentially, maybe even to double. So we need to go back and grow what we eat. Otherwise, our economy will not move. And I have a feeling that this government is going to be will not be able to pay its employees. And by the way, Edward Francis Teaching Hospital, with this increase in salaries of civil servants, Mr. Jata, do you know that those employees up till to this day, they have not received increases in their salaries?
No surprise.
They said every government civil servant is supposed to get increase, but not the teaching hospital. Up till to this day, they have not received increases, payment increase in their salaries. So again, I have to make this decision by January 1, 2023, whether I should support the status quo or be in the opposition.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you. I'm going to recap this briefly. A couple of things you brought up are quite very important here. The Jawara regime, you mentioned the frugality of the Jawara regime for good reasons. And I think what happened is, when Jawara's regime took it quite step by step, right? I think they intended to build the economy from the bottom up in a step by step fashion. They were not looking for big projects. relying on external loans and stuff like that. They were relying on things like primary healthcare, rural development projects, to build the economy from the grassroots. Right? It was difficult. It was slow, and many Gambians were impatient. I was one of them. I always thought that the other regime, could have done more. But even during that time, education was much better, right? We went to school through that time. It was a lot better than what it is now. So they managed education very well. Agriculture was doing well. We were able to import peanuts, cotton, animals. Gambia was, if you look back, it looks a lot better than now. Education was good. People who went to school from those years tend to be a lot more grounded than today's people coming out of our schools. Um, Healthcare, primary healthcare was pretty okay. There was a lot of inefficiencies there, but it could have been improved on. When Jammeh came, Jammeh was very ambitious. He wanted to do big projects, big things to satisfy those Gambians like me who were impatient with the slow pace of Jawara's development, right? And Jammeh embarked on big infrastructure things, mainly relying on external funding, right? And we still have that kind of a thing continue. It has become like a culture in the Gambia. We are out for big things, big projects, even though we can't pay for them. We rely on loans and grants. Grants are hard to come by nowadays. Loans and loans and loans and loans to do projects. If you listen to Gambia every day, it's all about projects, 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 and none of these projects are taking us anywhere. So I think that has been a problem. But to go back to our topic of the day, I think, Dr. Conte, there are several dynamics here. I think the depreciation of the dalasi is a problem of its own, but also the volatility of that depreciation is even the scariest one. The rate at which the dalasi is declining, depreciating in a short period of time, it is very volatile. So the volatility itself is what is most serious for investors. That is what is going to scare the hell out of investors, because the rate is today. You have no idea what it is going to be tomorrow. See, if the currency is depreciating, if it has depreciated, and it takes some degree of time, some amount of time for it to further depreciate, that gives you time to make an economic decision, a financial decision. But if the depreciation is on a daily swing, you can't make any decisions. It's very, very risky. That kind of an economy is very, very risky. And that is what scares investors away. That's what makes it difficult to make any rational financial or economic decision. So I think Gambia's problem is compounded. Unlike other countries where the currency is depreciating over a significant period of time, the Gambia's currency is on a free fall, it looks like. It's on a daily swing. And that is quite challenging for any business person whose business has international implications, international dimensions. But having said that, I think the Gambia, the authorities in the Gambia can also do certain things to try to minimize these things. They need to be able to manage inflation, particularly, at least control money supply and, control the interest rate, because all of these eventually are going to impact on the demand for money in the country. But in the long term, Doctor, I think we have to, ramp up internal production. Not only mobilization of resources through tax. We need to ramp up production in the country. production in the country, light manufacturing, will create more taxable, income. We can tax more of these companies to increase our revenue base, right? Not just income tax, because if you want to rely on that, you are depriving the citizens more and more of their earnings, right? So in the long run, we should be able to keep a low tax rate on the Gambian people while making more money through taxing corporations and companies and manufacturing plants, right? So I think those are some of the ways we can think of, how to, in the long term at least, to deal with these issues. But the way Gambia is going right now, Doctor, like you rightly said, is quite scary. We are losing on both sides. We are losing massively to Senegal through imbalance of trade. We are losing on the foreign currency side. Things are getting more and more scarce in terms of foreign currency in the Gambia. Prices are skyrocketing. So it's a very dire situation. But we just wanted to discuss these issues from our own point of view and contribute to the ongoing discussions about what's going on in the Gambia. And I think so much for this, Doctor, unless you want to say something right
Yeah, let
quick.
me add that because I was thank you. I just saw something. One of the car dealers in the Gambia, is it Tariq Musa or somebody, who was ordering vehicles, and they allowed the man to go out of the country with 8 million British pound sterling.
Wow.
I don't get it. If
Yeah.
the man was gonna order, how come he couldn't go to the bank to have letters of credit?
Right. Right. I know. But, that
But
adds to some of the problems Gambia has.
yeah.
We don't seem to.
So
uh,
did Barrow know about that?
Probably not, but I don't know. Some of these things they get approved from the top too sometimes.
So we blame the president for everything, right?
Well, I know the buck stops at the state house, but Gambia is Gambia, so
And what I don't understand about the marketing companies,
mhm.
what I don't understand about them when they're talking about they have liabilities but they cannot pay, I say that's a lie. Because number one, the liability was on your books and you delayed paying them. And then all of a sudden the Gambian dalasi is depreciated in value. So the amount that they have denominated in US dollars on the vendor's books, they will have to repay more Gambian dalasi,
Right.
therefore resulting in a foreign currency transaction loss.
And I think that's the bone of contention between
But
them.
now they are telling people that they cannot pay. Yeah, you cannot pay because you have cumulative liabilities for some time that you did not pay, and now to pay, if for $1 you were paying $50, and now for $1 is 56. So you are paying you are for every dollar, say you're paying $6 more on the liability. Don't blame the banks on that. Another one too is that don't tell me that we don't have currency in the Gambia when we are looking at letters of credit that the bank guaranteed for you to say, I used to do this work when I was in the Gambia. When we have pro forma statement, you, the merchant, promising the bank that upon shipment, because when the goods came when I was working there, the goods were sent directly to the bank, not to the customer. And the customer could not go to the port to get the goods until the bank gave them okay. As a matter of fact, the bank will all say you have to pay, and sometimes will allow them to go there and get the goods. Some of these merchants will take 30 to even 60 days for them to pay. and then interest rate between 7 to 15%. So, I mean, it is just, I don't understand in Gambia how people can just make up stories.
Right.
They can make up stories to say, well, we don't have the foreign currency to pay. But you know that they would have to pay in dalasi.
Right.
They will have to have the dalasi, and when they go to the bank, it will be converted into the dollar that they're gonna pay, and they will have to have foreign currency transaction laws. So if the oil company, and by the way, Senegal owes billions and billions of dollars on oil importation. So it's not only Gambia. This
Yes,
is almost every.
Senegal is facing a massive problem.
Senegal is facing the same thing.
Yeah.
So Senegal is facing the same thing. But so if these oil marketing companies we cannot rely on them. I know that when you put the government into a lot of activities, inefficiency becomes the fact. But then we have these mafia folks out there, and they control the economy. But when Yaya Jammeh was there, they did not control the nonsense. It's only now that they are going out there, flexing their muscles. But under Jammeh, they could not do this. And I hope the president can have the heart to come out and do something, because this totally affects. And then this political divisiveness when it comes to our economy, it doesn't matter whether you are UDP, NPP, DOI, or any other GDC or GMC. If GMC is still there, I think GMC is an automobile, right? That you can buy.
Yeah.
You can buy in Michigan, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, we need to come together. But the president.
Yeah.
So what happened to the think tank that the president had before? What happened to their wonderful ideas?
I know.
What happened to the billions of euros that were supposed to come to the Gambia when the president went to Europe, when he went to Brussels? We were supposed to get all this money.
Yeah. Well,
Oh my God.
those monies are contingent on confidence in the government. When people who pledge, to fund your government, if they lose confidence in it, they withhold their money. Part of the problem, like many people are analyzing now, is that part of the reason why our traditional donors are not funding our government in many areas now, they are rather turning to NGOs, is because of the lack of trust in our government now. So I think many people are getting quite apprehensive of the direction the Gambia is taking. So many things are happening. All these scandals and lack of action on them, and so in situations like these, it's difficult to get the credibility for anybody to give you money. So
And,
yeah,
the sports minister is out again on another trip collecting per diems.
another per diem trip. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And the president came with 41 people. He could have used the Gambian delegation
Right,
in New York to accompany him,
right.
and then also hired a private jet to bring him. And so this is a nightmare. So nothing seems to be working for us in the Gambia,
I know.
which unfortunately, I hope the president would just feel doing something better. What is
Yeah,
what is
I,
going on now is not good.
I hope so too. But thank you very much, Dr. Conte. Thank you for that explanation and contribution. I want to briefly look at the Bob Keita case. I want to make this pretty brief so we can wrap up for today. Dr. Conte, the Bob Keita, the state versus Bob Keita, has been a case that has gripped the Gambian nation for almost 2 years. Bob Keita was accused of raping the younger sister, the minor sister of his wife. And it is alleged that it is out of that rape that the girl got pregnant and gave birth to a son, Muhammad. Um, the matter went to court, and last week Bob Keita was acquitted and discharged and returned home to his family after spending, many people are saying 2 years, but I think the official record is 1.5 years in remand at Mile 2. I'm not going to go through all of these, what happened, but I want to particularly look at two major topics in this lawsuit, in this case. I want to look at the question of paternity and rape, and I want to look at the question of nolle prosequi and acquittal. So to start with, I think the government prosecutors did a terrible job in this matter. They have rested the entire case of this important matter only on one thing, that is DNA test. I don't know why they did not file a charge for rape separately from paternity, because paternity does not prove or disprove the occurrence of rape. Whether the child is Bob Keita's son or not has nothing to do with whether he raped the girl or not. The rape could be a separate issue totally from paternity. But the government prosecutors, I don't know the qualification of these people, and I'm not going to judge them on that, but I don't know why they rested this whole matter purely on paternity and DNA test. It's a terrible, terrible legal strategy in my view. Because if they had filed charges for rape, the rape would be, there would be separate evidence that can prove rape, completely separate from DNA. DNA would provide proof paternity, and if Bob Keita is found to be the son of the minor lady's, the father of the minor lady's son, that positive DNA finding would have proved rape. But if the DNA test comes negative, that only proves that he's not the father, but it did not disprove that he raped the girl. So the evidence that is required to prove rape is totally different from the evidence that is required to prove only paternity. So I see two dimensions to this, but for some reason the prosecutors failed to pursue the other one. And so if they had pursued the rape case, they would have been in position to inquire whether there is any rape kit, right? Whether any evidence was collected shortly after the incident of the rape, if there was rape. Now, in the Gambia, I know they may not have collected rape kit because the girl apparently did not report the rape immediately. It took a while for her before she reported it. But, sometimes there could be a piece of cloth that has been kept, like the underwear she was wearing that night. Some other clothes she was wearing. Any of these could have material that will have Bob's DNA, semen, hair, fingerprints. All of those could be found on some of those things, right? And they could have relied on that. They could even go after phone records, communication between the two, Bob and the girl, to get evidence of their relationship, right? We all remember in Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton's case, the blue dress the Monica was wearing that day. Clinton's DNA was found in it, right? And you know what that blue dress sold for 20 years later, Doctor?
Yeah.
$1 million.
Wow.
So, there's plenty of things that the prosecution could do to prove rape, rather than just putting all their basket on the question of paternity. So they could have looked at all that. But they went for paternity only, uh, unfortunately. I just wanted to say that briefly, what has been missed in this case. And this add up to, a list of, I would say landmark cases that the Barrow administration has lost, sometimes embarrassingly, because of poor job of their prosecutors and their investigators. We can remember the Yakumba Jare case. We can remember the Gam Petroleum case, in which at the end of the trial, after the three accused persons were acquitted, the government was so embarrassed they had to issue a press release telling the Gambian people, that the angry Gambian people, that while they are still investigating this case. What are you investigating? You investigate before you go to trial. You don't investigate after you go to trial and lose the case, and then you say you are still investigating. What are you going to do with that? You cannot try these people twice. You can only try them once, right? So we don't know. And we also remember the Karafi case, right? The government lost that also. So there are a number of cases, which can be considered landmark in the Gambia. And this government did a very terrible job in prosecuting them, and they lost them. So I wanted to say that, but I also want to look at the last minute government's scrambling to get a nolli prosequi instead of an acquittal and a discharge. Now the difference is that the nolli would have allowed the government to bring up new charges against Bob, but an acquittal and a discharge will bar them from bringing any further charges in this matter. The matter will rest totally. And this is important. It's an important legal concept because people want to have finality in their lives. Bob do not want to live his life with the fear over his head that this matter can come after him again. He needs to have that finality, that freedom, that peace of mind from this lawsuit. And that is why double jeopardy is bad. It's not allowed. You cannot try somebody for the same case twice. So the government, I believe they must have realized their mistake at the verdict, when the judge was about to give the verdict to Bob, that they have handled this case terribly. And they were scrambling to get a nollie so they can come up with new charges against him. Probably they were going to just press for rape this time. But they could have done that from the beginning. They could have filed charges for rape and charges for paternity separately, right? Yeah, but they did not do that. So I don't know. So we just want to make that clear that people can see that point. Bob is free, but something is missed in this trial. The prosecution did a very terrible job. They did not do a good job. And while we are happy for Bob that he has finally get to his freedom, and we wish him well in the rest of his life, we also want to recognize that the case was badly mishandled. And I see Dr. NPP came out through Dusano claiming that Bob is their Bob. Well, I don't know. I'm tired of these claims now. We had one before, Barrow is our Barrow. That did not end very well. We know where that ended. And when I see NPP claiming Bob is our Bob, I was like, oh my God, are we, all over again? But that's what we saw recently. And I want to address one more thing about this. There are a lot of people making claims that I think are unfair to the young girl who is at the center of this trial, the Zainab Mbai's sister, who many are claiming that did not report this case until last minute as evidence that the whole thing is false. That may not be true. I'm not saying that it is true, but it may not be true because we do know, Dr. Conte, rape is a very traumatic incident for many women. I would say for all women, anybody who is raped, comes out of that with a lot of trauma and a lot of, emotions that are very complex, right? Guilt, fear, self-hate, anger, and in the Gambia, you know, it takes these people to even report, even in the US here, it takes rape victims a long time before they can have the confidence and the courage to report this matter. Because we have to understand, usually the person who rapes you is not some random stranger. Rapists are usually somebody close to your family, somebody close to you yourself. So it's very difficult for you to make this report to people because oftentimes you are not believed. People don't believe you, and it has a potential of destroy a family because if you accuse a family member or a close friend of the family for raping you, it's like throwing a wrench in the family relationship. So many women are aware of this and they are scared to death to come out and report this. So we have to understand that it is very complex. It can take many women many years before they have the courage to come out and say somebody raped me. And it is even more difficult in Gambia because of the structure of Gambian society. And even if you report, a lot of time your parents, they will sue you. They will say, shh, you cannot say that. So it's not easy. So people should not just be judgmental. Um, the fact that she did not report it on time cannot be used as an excuse or used as a reason to dismiss her story totally. We're glad the DNA proved that Bob is not the father. But the DNA can only prove one thing, and one thing only. We must not extrapolate that to prove something that it did not prove. The DNA did not prove rape, it only proved paternity. Gambians must understand that. And we rest this case. Dr. Conte, if you have something to say on this, fine. If not, we're going to end this here for today.
Yeah, I do have something to say on this one, and that is for us who are traveling to Gambia, we should now be very careful because so anyone can accuse you of rape, and they may seize your passport, and you may not have the ability to leave the Gambia until the case is heard. So that is one thing. I refuse to say anything about this incident. I don't think I commented on it since it came out. And all I can say, is that the family is destroyed totally because Senabu, when Bubakar, because I'm not going to call him Bob, when Bubakar was in mile two, she was enjoying her freedom and saying all kinds of things. I'm not trying to belittle her. And then all of a sudden, she was arrested, and she's now there in a remand. She was there with Bubakar, and now Bubakar, and now Bubakar has left, and now she's there. So Karma knows what to do with stuff, and all I'm concerned about is the younger, is a younger, and the perception of how people think about that family. Two men. The DNA proved that the two men were not the father. So this is. Can you believe if you are a parent of this child? Can
That
you
means
believe
there's a third person out there we don't know anything
as a
about.
third person there right now? And but for us who are traveling to Gambia, we should be very careful because Gambia has now changed. It's not the country that I grew up in and you grew up in and more, all of us grew up in. Now People are doing whatever they can, open intoxication. People drink alcohol like crazy, and doing all kinds of stuff. And it is very sad. But I feel for the young girl. I hope nobody releases her name to the public. But can you believe being this young woman and you are in Serakunda, and some people know who you are? Can you believe being the parent of this young girl, or even a family, or even extended family, or even living right across from their compound? What is the perception that someone would throw at these people?
Right.
But again, we hope for the best. But when you visit Gambia, be very careful, because you never know. Somebody can do the same Bubakar Keita incident to you, and that might destroy you forever. It's all
Thank you,
right.
Doctor. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor, for being here. We want to thank everybody. Send us your comments, your observations, and we hope to be back here next Sunday. We'll see you all then. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye bye.